Hello everyone, this is William Pulfer-melville, and today I thought of doing a fun little video inspired by Unlucky Tug's video on the bizarre bases in Thomas and how he had changed them. I decided to do this because I really liked what he said and his reasons, and it inspired me to do that, but with some of the international characters. And so that's what I'll be doing. Now, before I start, I'm just going to say what I'm doing for this video. I am doing international characters who were not based on a locomotive from their specific country. I will not be including rolling stock in this video, mainly because we all know that the rolling stock shouldn't all be British rolling stock. And if you do like these characters as the way they are, I respect your opinion. I just wanted to basically show what I think they could have been had they had a bigger budget to actually make more engines based on actual engines from that country. Okay, let's start off with Shankar. Shankar is an Indian diesel shunter that appeared in Big World, Big Adventures, where he made a cameo, and then he would become a major character in the Indian episodes. And of course, he was played by very famous English actor Sanjeev Bhaskar. And he's an alright character for what he is, but there is one thing that can't be ignored. The fact that he's literally a reskin of Ivan. So yeah, despite being an Indian diesel, he is based on a Russian engine, particularly the Russian TGM-23. And with him being a reskin of Ivan, this becomes very obvious. Apparently, they weren't ever going to reuse Ivan again, so they just modified the already existing model into Shankar. But, yeah, it is very far-fetched in real life for a Russian locomotive to actually be sent over to India, as Russia doesn't have that sort of relationship with India. So, although one thing that is accurate with Shankar is that his livery is actually based on a real-life Indian locomotive. So, let's look for an engine that better represents Shankar. Okay, requirements. It needs to be a small diesel shunter. Preferably one with 6 wheels, much like Shankar. It must have an exhaust in front of the cab. And it must look beefy enough to do the sort of jobs Shankar does. And I think I know just the engine. The Indian Locomotive Class WDS4. These locomotives have 6 wheels, much like Shankar. Plus, it overall has the same shape as Shankar. I mean, apart from the cowcatcher, but who cares? It does seem to be, these engines were preferably ones that actually were used back in the day for the sort of jobs Shankar does, shunting around the yard. And now we've got that out of the way, let's move on to our next international character. Oh boy, this one's a doozy. Fernando. Fernando is a teal diesel shunter who works on the Brazilian railways. Now, I think it's obvious why he wouldn't work in real life. Mainly because Fernando is based on an '08 diesel shunter. The same engine as Diesel, Arry, Burt, Splatter, Dodge, Paxton, Sydney, and the mainland diesels. And these engines only worked in Britain in real life. With Fernando himself literally being a reskin of a pre-existing diesel shunter that was shown on the mainland, just given a teal and grey paint job. But let's change his... Okay, what are the requirements we need for a reimagined version of Fernando? Well, first of all, it needs to be an engine that was either built somewhere but has worked in Brazil. It also has to be an engine that is able to pull heavy goods trains, because whenever we see Fernando on screen, he's always pulling a goods train. So I guess we'll be looking for that. And I think I know just the class that Fernando should be. An Alco RSC3. These very strong diesel-electric locomotives were used for shunting, but they did, however, were able to pull heavy goods trains. They were built in the United States, but they were shipped to other places around the world, including my country, Australia, as well as Canada, Portugal, and yes, there's even one that operates in Brazil. The one that worked in Brazil worked on the Sao Paulo railway in Brazil. So yeah, I think it is, but yeah, with this design, I really do think this actually could work as a potential alternative class for Fernando. This is fun. Let's move on. Right, now we're getting into some real bizarre characters now. And these are diesels that literally only appeared once in Big World, Big Adventures and never appeared again. I am, of course, talking about the Arizona diesels. The Arizona diesels are two diesel engines that featured in Big World, Big Adventures and were seen when Thomas and Nita were going through the Grand Canyon and caught them when they slipped down the bridge. Of course, as everyone has noted, is the fact that the one that is that she is a recolor of Frankie. And this also doesn't work because we also see we later see in San Francisco two more engines that look identical to her, with it being unknown whether or not one of them is the same one that was shown earlier. Now, why doesn't this character actually work as a character? Well, one of them being the fact that, not only is this a British diesel that never worked in the United States at all, but the Hudswell Clark 060 diesel shunter, number 4002 Arundel Castle, affectionately known as Billy, as well as its sister locomotive, number 4001 Allowick Castle, were actually two-of-a-kind locomotives with no other engines of this class ever being built. Another problem is that this engine is seen pulling a long goods train. These engines were only capable of shunting. Now, I think this is an obvious one for those who have redesigned the engine in the past, but I think she should definitely be an EMD NW3 for obvious reasons. One of them being, one, this is an American locomotive, check. It even shares the same colour scheme as the Arizona engine, so there's that. And not only that, but despite these engines being switchers, they actually did pull goods trains when hooked up to another member of its class. So there's that. Not only that, but multiple of these engines were built. So it adds to how there are two locomotives. Alright, now let's get to the final engine. And this one is going to be a bit harder. Natalie. Natalie is a small American diesel shunter who worked at the docks in San Francisco. And as many people would notice, she was a reskin of Dart, just given a blue and red colour scheme to match the fact she's American, even though she's based on a British engine, and her face is literally just Dart's face modified with feminine features. And I think it's obvious, like I said before, why the class of engine that she's based on, the 040 diesel hydraulic shunter number 3207, aka Lee's. One of them being the fact that this engine obviously was built in England, never worked outside America. It never worked in America. And, well, it just does not work for Natalie whatsoever. With her being American and all. So, and fun fact, before we move on, at one point, apparently Natalie's name was supposed to be Amy, but for some reason her name ended up being changed to Natalie in the final version. But let's just say that now, when I was trying to think of an alternative basis for Natalie, I found it very hard indeed, as let's see the requirements we need for Natalie. She needs to be a small locomotive, preferably an 040. It also has to be one that also worked in America. And it must be some sort of industrial locomotive of some sort. And I think and after some digging online, I think I found the perfect locomotive to represent Natalie. The GE 25-ton switcher. These locomotives were built in America. Check. They worked in many industrial sites, although the GE 25s actually worked in quarries and clay pits. it's not that far of a stretch to say that that one might work in the dockyard in San Francisco. And also she ticks some of the other boxes that fit Natalie. She's got a headlamp above the grille, which is where her face would be. She has an exhaust in front of her cab. Has 4 wheels. And is even the right shape. So, I think it is fair to say that this engine could very much be the perfect alternative basis for Natalie. And there you go. That is my picks on what alternative bases some of the characters from Big World, Big Adventures could have been. And I hope you all enjoyed this video.